the show got delayed and delayed and delayed, and we figured we'd do it before the week ended. This is what I would consider the closest to ending the week that you can get. So irrelevant, though, because there haven't been any games since when the show was originally scheduled till now. There hasn't really been any big news. What was the biggest news so far this week? I'm out of the loop in that regard. I don't think anything dropped of any significance other than a drilling down of what happened at the games. If that's news, the idea that the Canadian Football League quarterback society is healthier than it's been in past, right?
Yep, we got Trevor Harris has been given the green light to play against, and it's a big one against Calgary. So perfect time for him to come back.
Yeah, it's a big one, all right. That's an important game coming. Let's talk about what happened last week, and let's start with let's see. Yeah, let's start with the team or teams that we don't follow as closely. And by that, of course, I mean we'll start with the other teams, not called the Argonauts. So last week we had, I think of Calgary now, and I think of their defeat of Winnipeg, and they look good doing it, David.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to win. It's another thing to look kind of dominant while doing it
against a dominant team.
Right. Like that. I saw the score and I'm like, what happened? How did that happen? And then I think I turned it. As I turned the game on too, like 2 plays later, pick 6 back to the house for Calgary. And I'm like, okay, that explains. That kind of does explain it. Yeah, they just. It's weird because like, you look at the stats and you think, how in the world did Zach Claros throw it 48 times in that game? And he still ran the ball too to some degree with Brady Oliveira, not to the I think to the level that we were coming to expect. Right? You expect Oliveira to be well over 100 yards, but yeah, like Calgary did a lot with not much, and Winnipeg it felt like they kept digging themselves into quicksand, and there's too much for them to overcome.
They had possession, Winnipeg.
Oh yeah,
for 5 minutes, but the game didn't look like that. Maybe because of the key points that Calgary got without having to run the ball down the field.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where, like, Winnipeg was, equal in terms of second down conversion. 2 giveaways kind of did hurt them. It's hard not to say that, but also, Calgary did not attempt a single field goal in this game. Winnipeg had 3, so you kind of factor those in. Yeah, that's gonna play a big factor in a win or loss, right? I always say like teams that sometimes are, you can chip away, get those points off field goals, but if the other team is putting up touchdowns, you're gonna be in a deep run there. You're gonna have problems. But I mean, frankly, you don't win. You can't win when making mistakes like Winnipeg did. Very reminiscent of the Grey Cup in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and not reminiscent of the way they played the regular season and when they won their Grey Cup. They're a really good team that has been predicted to be one that was going to fall off their high perch first for at least the last 2 years. A lot of people didn't think that Winnipeg would finish first, the last couple of years. And the way they started the season was a pretty good indicator that could be very true. But things turned around for them. And they can turn around for them again. Brady Oliveira is back. This is his first game back since his injury. So maybe he'll get a little better and the team will work a little better. There, I got to turn that off. I got a phone call. Sorry, I apologize. We do have an opportunity to see Calgary's depth as far as the way they play, their quarterback. Their defense, I'm finding, is being what it has been. Over the years, their offense under the previous quarterback, Levi Mitchell, took a lot of the the air out of the room, but their defense was always something that was very good. And I think their defense is, while the offense has done pretty much good stuff, I think silently the defense of Calgary has shown how they can win football games and score as well, which you and I both know, just watching Toronto, how many games have they won, not because of the offense, but kind of the defense. And Calgary's kind of doing the Argos thing, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, yeah, like Calgary has always had good players. It just sometimes hasn't always come together. But like David Webb, last week he had the pick six. All right, first interception of the season, and only allowed one completion on 10 passes thrown his way. That's pretty impressive, right? It's been pretty impressive when you consider, Calgary's always had some decent players on that defense, especially in the backfield. But I mean, look, I think part of it too is the offense is not putting themselves in bad positions, right? They're not turning they didn't turn the ball over last week, right? So those giveaways weren't there, and that's usually what also puts the defense in a tough spot, is those giveaways. And so I do think that if you're Calgary, you're impressed with what you're seeing from this team, because it's not one element that's doing it. They're getting it from all different facets of the game.
Yeah, and full value for their victory. They win 37-16. They more than doubled Winnipeg's scoring output. To me, that smacks of what Winnipeg was last year at the start of the season. They couldn't work things out. The team itself wasn't playing well in any area, and not that I think that's overstating how poorly Winnipeg's played. But I guess when you lay it against the standard that they've created the last 10 years, they're a different team right now. And in this game, they look like a team susceptible to a team that plays well to beat them.
Yeah, like to beat Calgary, like you look at the loss that they had. The defense didn't give up much. It wasn't the defense's fault for that loss. The offense just couldn't put much together. So, I mean, look, I had been one of those people that weren't sure what to expect from Calgary this year. Wasn't really feeling good about what they had done in the off season, but you can't fault the results right now, right? I mean, they go out, they beat Hamilton pretty handedly. Toronto, they handled quite easily too. But that Ottawa game, I'm sure they probably have a bad taste in the mouth, just because it really, the only area of the defense that got beat was their running. Like they couldn't stop the run.
Yep.
That was it. Ottawa was just like, all right, we're not getting much of the air. We're just gonna run it, and Calgary couldn't stop it. So I think if your teams right now, if you're Saskatchewan going into this week, especially, you saw what they did against Winnipeg, and you say, we're going to have to run the ball more. If we're going to try to throw this ball 40 plus times, it's not going to go well, because this secondary in Calgary is going to make you earn each and every yard through the air.
And additionally to your comment about, unable to run the ball for Calgary, or unable to stop the run of Ottawa, the irony there is Ottawa couldn't run the ball until that game. That's how things have changed. They really did flip.
And they really did. Impressive. It is quite impressive. And look, give Calgary credit, because they're not winning games the easy way either. Like they're not winning it. Like they're winning in impressive ways. Like they're putting in the work to earn these wins. So you have to give them a lot of credit for that.
Absolutely, and they deserve credit, and they're a great team. And this is the beauty. This is the beauty of watching the Canadian Football League. And there's always the concern always comes down to, do you have a starting quarterback? And that's been a big issue, and part of the losses and part of what's working well for Calgary is that Vernon Adams looks like the quarterback that BC hoped he'd be, that he was elsewhere before he went to BC, and that makes a big difference when you have a number one quarterback that's playing like a number one quarterback. And it's amazing, David, the difference that it makes. Now, I guess one can ask this question. Maybe I'll ask you and I'll give my opinion. Is Calgary making Vernon Adams more consistent, or is Vernon Adams' ability to be consistent making the team more consistent as far as...
this is what I'll say about Vernon. I thought he had good times in BC. Like, I think especially last year, he was starting off so well, and then it kind of injuries and stuff kind of took their toll. But I look at Calgary. I mean, look, we saw them a few weeks ago in Toronto. They like to spread that ball around, and they're doing this with Begelton getting hurt.
Absolutely,
that's the impressive part. Is they lost one of their top offensive weapons, but Jalen Philpott, what a story he's been so far this year.
Not injured.
Yeah, healthy, performing. Him and his brother, they're going to be contending for top Canadian this year, I think, in my opinion. Tevin Jones, pretty decent season so far for him. Like they're not going out trying to do. I think what Calgary's realized, if we can make sure that Vernon Adams is not being asked to do everything,
there it is.
That to me is where I think the difference probably is. He's not. They got to run a consistent running game with him. They've got. He's putting up yards, but he's not throwing the ball a whole heck of a lot either. So to me, I think that's probably where I see the difference with Vernon right now. He knows what he needs to do to be successful, and he's not going outside of what he needs to be either.
Exactly. That's exactly the way I would look at it, and I'll phrase it in this way. He doesn't have to make the big play. He just has to be a professional quarterback doing what needs to be done as a quarterback. Take the plays the defense is giving him and don't try to push anything. Because as soon as he starts pushing things, that's when the interceptions start. And that's where, the guys that he has as receivers, his running game and such, insulates him so that he has an opportunity to be successful. And that's something that for him, he lost in BC. As much as it was the injuries, which it was, as much as it was the time away, the additional thing was he was on a list to be quarterback on a list that didn't want him to be the starting quarterback. So, that couldn't have been very good. So now security is the biggest thing that Calgary offered him, right, David? I mean, there really wasn't anybody there who's going to take over the job. He's got a real good handle on being a starting quarterback there. So, he does his best work when he's not feeling, pressure, because everywhere he's been, David, there's always been somehow a quarterback that comes in. Going back to Manziel, a quarterback comes in, and now that quarterback is the guy. That quarterback is going to be the guy, and he hears footsteps. Security is the best thing that the team has given him. And so my answer is, it is the team that's helping him to be successful, but only because he has the basic talent to be successful. But the palette now assists him in succeeding. And that's the important thing, I think, for Vernon Adams.
I think the big one here too is I see Calgary went out, didn't mess around, and they got the best quarterback they believed that was out there. And he probably was the best quarterback really available. And yeah, they told him, you're the guy. This is plan A. There's no plan B, plan C. You are our quarterback. And I do think you're right, Frank. There is something to be said about a team that puts that onus on especially for Calgary, to kind of tell Vernon Adams, you're the guy. Like we think you're still more than capable. And Frank, that there's players like Vernon who when a team says we don't need you anymore, they take that to heart a little bit. Now look, there are other guys that Calgary has brought in, but no one, like, I'm not hearing anybody talk about those.
No immediate threat.
There's no immediate threat. And so if you're like that must feel like that to have that. That's probably what he felt like when Nathan Rourke left BC to go to the NFL. He's probably like, all right, my shot right here. And then it wasn't anymore.
Until it wasn't his team, yeah. Until
it wasn't his team. Even like in Montreal.
Absolutely.
He was there. They brought in Johnny Manziel. Like what?
And each time, and in Montreal, he was playing well. That was the scary thing there that happened to him. He was developing a reputation for making it now as that was the first opportunity that he had to establish that he was a legitimate Canadian Football League starting quarterback. That was a moment, and it was, he ended up like the carpet pulled out from under him. Okay, let's move on to BC and Montreal. Montreal loses their second game. They lose it to BC, a team that's been up and down, and they lose it by 1 point. For me, that 1 point is important. Why it's important to me is that there is this new resurging Montreal Alouette team. One of the characteristics that they have had over the past, 2-3 years is that they've won the close games. This one must hurt because this is the kind of game where their defense can make a big difference and their offense can do enough to win. It didn't happen, either of those things.
Do you mean it hurt because of the punches thrown at the end of the game? Or hurt because of the results?
That's the follow-up. We'll go with that as that's the follow-up question.
Yeah, I mean, this game was in Montreal's hands. Like they allowed 12 points in the fourth quarter to lose it. Now, but here's the thing, though. Like, Nathan Rourke was having a pretty good game, right? Like, it felt like it was a matter of time until maybe things were going to go their favor. But Montreal, give them credit, like they kept that lead. But this is where the quarterback kind of wins you a game.
Absolutely.
And I think that's when Nathan Rourke did. Now, was it pretty? Your quarterback throws for 352 yards, and he runs for he almost put up 400 yards of total offense, and he only had 21 points to show for it. I thought for McLeod, it was a good bounce back game for him. I thought, Montreal was doing good things with the running game. But in the end, BC just turned that other gear when it mattered. And, credit to Sean White for knocking down the three field goals he had. Those were big too. But, definitely a game for Montreal where you're just like, this is not the way we want to lose that game. And now, they're on a bye. Hamilton can be like, here we are, right with you. I remember everyone at the start of the year thought, Montreal's going to run away with this division. Mm-hmm. The injury to Davis Alexander doesn't help, but
that is number one quarterback, Canadian Football League, minimum requirement to win. You can get away with it for a little bit, but you can't get away with it for long if you don't have a legit starting quarterback. Now, while most of the penalties were at the end of the game, still 146 yards in penalties to Montreal, 50 the other way. That doesn't help. Discipline is an issue, and it's an issue especially for a team that likes playing on the edge. Hey, David, they need to play on the edge and not go over the edge. And we saw that they can go over the edge in that game.
Well, that's it, right? Like, sometimes teams don't lose, but they beat themselves. And in a way, Montreal kind of did that to themselves. But I'm very surprised, Frank. This is the year, and I have to ask somebody. It really does feel like this is the year that we've seen the most undisciplined play from multiple teams. I think almost a majority of teams would say that they've been guilty of being undisciplined, and it costing either almost costing them games or costing them games.
Yeah, and I'll expand it beyond the penalty factor,
Yeah.
beyond the penalties that teams take. The discipline also to play the game the way it's supposed to be played and do the basics correctly. For example, with Toronto having the right amount of players on the field, that discipline has shown itself really well in this early season with the Canadian Football League. And it always raises the debate as to whether there are enough exhibition games to ensure that the teams are actually ready to play the season. But this is what it is in the Canadian Football League. It is the decision they made to play less exhibition games so that they can play the complement of regular season games they can play and shorten the opportunity for players to get injured and shorten the season so it isn't that long. Football's a real mean sport. It's not kind to men's bodies at all.
No, and here's the thing, like injuries and all these factors, but that's probably been the tough part for the league this year. How many injuries, penalties? The one thing that I believe that kills games more than anything, more than injuries, is penalties.
Yes,
because you take a play, there's a flag. The kickoff is run back. And what does everybody say? As soon as a kickoff is returned for a touchdown, what's the first thing people say? Are there any flags? No flags? Like it's almost like it's become second nature to decide, we got to make sure that there's.
We also saw where flags under different circumstances could have been thrown, but because it's a kick return, it's not. We've seen that as well. So games hang in the balance in the Canadian Football League because there is a kick return game in the Canadian Football League. There's one less down, but when it comes to kickoffs in the Canadian Football League, there is the opportunity to score. In fact, this past week, somebody won $1 million, $50,000 for 20 years. Great for them. And it was because there were 2 kick returns for touchdowns, one by each team. So it wasn't even a case of, and we were there for that, David.
We were. I mean, congrats. I mean,
good for them.
Won $1 million. Wow.
Yeah.
And can't believe it's been this long since we've had that happen. But yeah, I know. I do believe that. Man, just the whole idea of how games can be changed in one split second, and then nope, sorry, nope, we can't. But there's been a little bit of inconsistencies with some, especially on kickoff returns, where I've been told there should have been a call here, didn't happen, right? So I think officiating. I'm not saying officiating has been bad this year, but it has been a factor, maybe more of a factor than some people realize.
And to suggest that that it's guaranteed that the fault goes to the officials. There's also the fact that teams have to deal with bad breaks, whether it's officiating or any other thing. The bounce of the ball is something that you can't let decide the game for you. You have to overcome any bad bounce that's that you're being handed. So that at the end of the day isn't why teams lose. Teams lose because they give in to losing or don't do enough to win. And I like the way the season looks so far. It's been a really exciting season, and honestly, the surprises in the Canadian Football League and the teams that have played really well. Calgary has been the flag bearer for that.
Yep.
Where I don't think even the Calgary fans saw that coming. They hoped it was coming, but I don't think they saw it coming. And good for them. Good for them. And I guess we sometimes expect so much from teams and so little from others. So it creates a standard that's fun to see, be taken away from you. That that you think you got everything figured out, and then you get a surprise. Mm-hmm. Another surprise, kinda. Edmonton at home beats Ottawa 39-33. Edmonton looked the running game. David, it blew my mind. Rankin was just unbelievable when I was watching that game. I started watching it, and I'm watching this guy, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. Man, he looks like the best running back right now in the Canadian Football League.
I mean, you're not far off. I don't think you're far. I don't know if I would put him as the top running back in the league just yet.
No, but he's playing the best right now. I don't think there's another running back that has done what he did on that game.
No, I don't think so either.
Prize factor, especially.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. He's in a bit of a double running back situation with Javon Leake. Leake did get hurt, so I think part of that plays into that too. But he's not. I think he is among the top. I think he's probably top 3.
That's good to say for a guy,
Yeah, I mean, I think he changed a lot for Edmonton too with how they do things offensively, because they have a guy like Rankin who is capable of running the ball as much as he can. In this game, he runs the ball 12 times, 105 yards. That's pretty. Now, he did have a 74-yard run, so it skews the numbers a little bit. But I mean, that's what you need from a guy like him, right?
Absolutely.
Because what's the one thing we said to start the year? Trey Ford hasn't exactly been stellar.
Absolutely.
And so you need another element to your team to help lift your quarterback. And I do think that that's where he comes in. That's where you get a running back. And how many teams right now? You look at the teams that are at the top of the NHL standings, and why is that? It's because they have a good running game. I mean, you look at Saskatchewan. In my opinion, they got the best running back in the league in Andrew Willett. Calgary, Dedrick Mills is probably second on the list for me because of how productive he's been. Winnipeg, we know with Brady Oliveira. And then you've got even Montreal's running game has been pretty decent. But like you look at the top 3 teams, they have established number 1 running backs that you can give the ball to, and you're going to get something out of them.
Absolutely. With Edmonton, when you establish the running game, there's nothing a young quarterback can use more than an honest defense that basically has to be careful about how they rush you because your running game, and be careful about how they cover. How the linebackers have to move up because that first level there needs to be a defense in that first level when you have a running back running the way Rankin is. So that helps the quarterback a lot. This goes to the same thing we talked about with Adams and with every quarterback needs an opportunity to be a winner. And to be a winner, they need to be able to have the game in their control. A quarterback can't control the game from the ground. Okay, the grass stains are an indicator that quarterback's going to have a tough night. So when the offensive line and the running back and the receivers work together, you see the difference between the Edmonton team that lost 7 in a row to the Edmonton team that won against a pretty good team. Yeah. I think they were playing well. I think Ottawa didn't play badly. They could have won that game with a break here or there.
But they got off to Ottawa. Ottawa was playing catch up, right? When you're down 15-3 after the first quarter, I give them credit for bouncing back, give them credit for pushing back in that second quarter. But I'm also, unfortunately, have to remind people that Ottawa's at a point right now where the margin for error is so slim, right? Drew Brown being back, big difference for them.
He looked good.
He looked good. But Ottawa, it's like every time you think they're going to take a step forward, there's a step back. I do think that, when you look at what went wrong in this game, it's not, you said it. The offense was good. Defense, okay. Defense could have been better, but where did it go wrong, Frank?
For Ottawa, their quarterback didn't get in a rhythm until later in the game.
That's part of it, but also
he finished. Go ahead.
But it's also, you got to play the game at all three phases.
Absolutely.
And that's where Ottawa lost.
Yeah.
Javon Leake scoring. I mean, that punt return. Jeez. Like Javon Leake, we remember now why he was coveted when he left Edmonton when he left Toronto to go to Edmonton.
Toronto's been spoiled with with kick returners.
Yep. No, they have. But they've understood that that's an element of the game. You need to have production there. And that's where Edmonton, I mean, Mark Killam, we know he is a special teams guy.
Yeah.
So
and that's a good segue to Toronto. Toronto, the problem with them is they don't have a decent, dependable running game. A key to having a good offense. And then, of course, they haven't had the opportunity. Oh, everything okay, David? They haven't had an opportunity to show what they can do because they don't have a real good kick return either. No running game, no kick return. And the Argos end up losing to Hamilton 51-38. In that game, we heard cries of Oski Wee Wee. That's how much the Hamilton Tiger Cats have progressed in the eyes of their fans. And this was a game that they clearly gave an indication that they're going to play real well. Their offense came to life last year, and now their defense is starting to work. They have a healthy defense. And I got to tell you, Milanovic is he's a Grey Cup winning coach, for goodness sake. No one should be surprised that this team is starting to play better. No one should be surprised that Bo Levi Mitchell, even the older version of Bo Levi Mitchell, is the kind of guy that understands the game as well as any quarterback. Can he execute? Is health an issue? Well, right now he looks as healthy as he's been in years, which means he's got a great chance to succeed strictly on ability. We're waiting for David. David is there.
I'm back. Sorry, my phone was going off like crazy, and I'm not sure why.
There you go.
So I left it in the other room, so I wanted to, because it was going to keep going off until I picked it up.
Yeah. So I was just talking about the Ticats and how they have a coach who's won a Grey Cup, and I was just about to say they have a quarterback who I've talked about who's healthy and is playing really well, who won a Grey Cup himself. There are players on that team that have been brought from outside the organization who have won Grey Cups. No one should be surprised. No one, absolutely nobody should be surprised that the Hamilton Tiger Cats are playing as well as they are. I don't think it's a surprise for me anyway. I really like what they've done. They've slowly built the kind of team it takes to make it to the playoffs, which is something the Hamilton Tiger Cat fans are looking forward to. And I mentioned about the first time in a few years I've heard Oski Wee Wee at BMO Field.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Offensively, they are. I think offensively, they're, in my opinion, they're the best team in the East, I think, right now, offensively, in terms of having the best quarterback receiver duo with Bo Levi Mitchell and Kenny Lawler. And that shouldn't surprise anybody.
Wow, was that amazing?
Because Kenny Lawler is the best receiver in this league. And I don't think anybody would argue against that.
No.
He's that dynamic. Like he didn't catch easy throws from both Levi Mitchell in that game. I think there's something to be said about, having guys that are dynamic, right? I do think that that's been a big one for Hamilton. Now they also got the special teams. Special teams has worked so well for them. That's they've really hammered down on because special teams was not good for them last year. And then if I'm going to add to that, I think the defense early on was good. I think the defense I'm still iffy on the defense in Hamilton, but it's going in the right direction at least. That linebacker, the guy that they kept and released Wilson.
The rookie.
The rookie. I'm blanking on the name right now, but like, Devin Verasuk. Like that's something right there where if you've got production like that from a rookie, I give a lot of credit to the GM, who unfortunately is dealing with health challenges right now. But I mean, I give a lot of credit to they've built something pretty good there in Hamilton. Now, I want to see how this progresses as the year goes on. I do think that there's still work to be done. I think offense they've got off to a good start. I'd like to see a little bit more from their running game. Personally, I think that the running game could be they did well in the running game against Toronto when they needed to get some yards and take some of the not making those easy 2-and-outs, especially when they had the big lead. But you can't argue with how Bo Levi Mitchell has looked with Kenny Lawler. That's it just feels like he's been waiting for a receiver like that to help make a difference.
We talk about a receiver's catch radius. It's not just his catch radius. It's how his catch radius can't seem to be interrupted either. In other words, even in the heart of his catch radius, somehow the defender can't find it, but he can. It doesn't matter where in that catch radius.
Yeah.
He finds it before anybody else does. And to me, all 3 touchdowns, that's what those 3 touchdowns were. I mean, they were all balls that the defender could have ended up with. One extra step, a hand to the left, a hand to the right. They just by the margin of his success in that game, add all 3 touchdowns, and there wasn't more than a yard or 2 in total that the Argos didn't improve on to do something in those plays. It was all inches. Everything that happened in all 3 touchdowns that he had were a matter of inches. And here's the thing. That's the thing about football. It is a game of inches. And he showed us why it's said, that is said, that it's a game of inches. It was an incredible showing on his part. His 3 touchdowns, 21 points, if you don't want to count the converts, his 18 points were critical in that victory because they each happened at a time when the Argos seemed to get the momentum. So it isn't just that he made the catches. It's when he made them and how it affected the positive momentum that the opposition had.
Yeah. And that's crucial. It's almost like you look at what he had versus what the other, and look, there were some other big plays that were eventually made later in the game.
Absolutely.
Once they realized we got to find a way to stop Kenny Lawler. I mean, I'm also like, he had 207 yards and the next closest was 30 yards. So if I'm going to nitpick, it's that maybe they knew that they had something there with Kenny Lawler, and they're just going to keep doing it until someone was going to stop him. But the one touchdown that they scored late in the game, Frank, can I bring this up now?
Go ahead.
I hate to be the party pooper, but how in the world was that last touchdown that they scored a touchdown? That might have been the most clear and obvious offside I had ever seen.
Yeah.
And look, in the CFL, sometimes we can say, "Oh, it looks like that was offside," and maybe it's just timing worked out that we didn't really notice it.
It was a heck of a waggle.
That one there was by far and away one of the more egregious offsides I had seen. And the worst part is I thought they were going to flag it down and say, okay, no, we messed up.
Yeah, but
Only
still, it's a reviewable thing because a touchdown scored.
yeah, like if there was an infraction on the play, which there was, I thought that was going to get called back, and it didn't. And I'm a little surprised. I'm not. I mean, it didn't ultimately at the end of the day. It didn't change the game really that much. To me, it was just more so. Why are you reviewing for something else when there was a clear and obvious thing there? And look, we talked
a score.
And I don't know. To me, that wasn't why Toronto lost. That one play wasn't it. So I'm not going to get like people shouldn't get too bothered by it. But I do think that
it says something that shouldn't be said, and that is that you miss it after you review it.
Yeah, that was the part that kind of we were all kind of like, what? But
then it looked like they were gonna. It looked like they realized it after the fact, and they huddled there for it seemed an eternity to try and figure something out. And instead, it was they made a completely different call, almost to suggest, okay, we're not doing that other play. This is what happened this time. So it was an interesting waste of time because there was a good 5, 6, maybe even 8 minutes where the referees had their heads together for something that was totally inconsequential after overlooking something that really mattered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
now the Argos need a quarterback. Arbuckle's a really good quarterback. He won the Grey Cup. He was the MVP. But he started very slowly. If we're going to review Arbuckle, he started very slowly and didn't make big throws when they were necessary. And the receivers, for the most part, you can't blame them. It's not like they had the dropsies. It's not like they were dropping balls left and right.
No, but here's the thing with Toronto. Okay, they got off like first drive, like textbook touchdown. Good. Okay, they were able to get something there. Then it was two. Then I'm actually I was trying to find the drive chart, but I felt like it was 2 and out.
2 and out.
Interception. And what happened with that interception? First play after the interception, first Kenny Lawler touchdown. So if you want to know why, like the defense was put in a bad position to start, and then the offense eventually did get going. Everyone's like, "Oh, Nick Arbuckle played it perfectly." He didn't play a perfect game. Because if he played a perfect game, there wouldn't have been that interception. And some of the things he did in the second half, he would have done in the first half. They only had 13 points going into the first half. They were outscored 24-13. In a lot of ways, we felt that it should have been more than that for Hamilton. They're doing some good things on offense. I think they don't use DeMonte Coxie enough, especially early in games, because he's your number one. Like when we're talking about top receivers in the league, he's top 5 for me. He's that good, but they don't use him. Like Kevin Mittal, really good receivers, really established himself, but he's also one of those guys that you're asking to go and get you extra yards because they're not throwing it down the field to him. They're asking him to do more. But where they're really, Frank, we know the Toronto's real problem offensively. They don't have a running game.
Not at all.
No running game there. And that to me is a problem. Kevin Brown struggled.
Kevin Brown's not getting it.
No.
Or their offense is not.
The offensive line isn't winning battles either to help their running backs either. I get that, but their running game, that they need to take pressure off the offense to run the ball. So like that to me is a crucial one there. And defensively, that was a mess. That was a mess.
They had good moments.
They had good moments. They got to Bo Levi Mitchell. They got sacks. They got guys who can get to the quarterback. But Hamilton, 18 of 13 on first down, 13 of 20 on second down. To me, they just weren't, and the penalties too were also, especially on offense, are holding them back too. But you just look at this game too. Is just I don't know. I feel like this defense has got to find a way to get off the field earlier. Like they are just struggling right now. They're not making life easy on themselves.
Not at all.
And look, I am going to also say it's also because they don't have their best players on the. They're probably the most injury-stricken team in the league right now. Okay, no McManus, Deontay McMahon's out. That's a big part of their running game. Parrish, their best pass rusher, was also out. I don't know about this. I'm sure there's a one or two in the secondary. That takes its toll.
And if not gone, a lot of guys that need to really learn what's going on.
Yeah, but I also didn't bring up the one player that they've been without all year.
Gee, who are you talking about? Who could it be?
Their starting quarterback.
Oh yeah, starting quarterback. We talked about that earlier in the show, that it's important to have a starting quarterback.
Look, I think Nick Arbuckle this was probably his best game. Well, yeah, I would say this is his best game in terms of production, but to me, it just felt like this was a game where they needed him to, when the defense was struggling, like when they allowed the touchdown, Toronto needed to go and respond with the touchdown, but they didn't. They relied on field goals. And they can't be relying on field goals early in games. Late in games, that's fine, where it's close. But early in games, when your defense is giving up touchdowns, you need to respond with touchdowns.
When you lose a game by 51 points, you know that you needed to score touchdowns.
When you allow 51 points, yeah, exactly. Now, your offense puts up 38 points. Your defense needs to give you a chance, and they didn't. That's hard to ask for as well.
Yeah, they couldn't outscore their offensive problems.
No, they couldn't.
Right? And the defense couldn't defend the problems that were created by an offense that was effective but ineffective for the most part. And the thing was, and I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is every team that has difficulty winning, usually it comes down to the inability to get a stop. And the Argo defense couldn't get enough stops in that game, vis-a-vis the 51 points, to give their offense a chance to win. It is neither. I wouldn't blame either of the three parts of their game. I think they all equally contributed to that loss. The amount of points that were scored, their inability to make stops, and not making the big plays when they needed them. They had opportunities to make big plays. They didn't make them. Arbuckle did make some nice passes that were dropped. Unfortunately, when all those things, when you have a menu full of things that don't go 100% right, that inches towards a loss. And in this case, the 51 points wasn't really 51 points. No offense to Bo Levi Mitchell and company. They didn't grind out those points. A lot of them were just great breaks and gifts. To that point, I'm going to say the Argos are not that far away from being a better team. They're just missing enough to have repeated issues with points being put on the board by the opposition and their inability to score.
Yeah, no, I think if look, Hamilton, give them credit. They scored 51 points. That's just, you don't see that often. You see it in the CFL, but you don't see it very often, and you got to give them credit for being able to do that. If you're Toronto, you got to look yourselves in the mirror and say, why did we allow 51? What's going on here? And now, look, they also allowed a special teams return for a touchdown. That can't happen. Like, Toronto was not giving those up very often either last year. So that's another area that they need to figure out as well.
Yeah, no, they did not do well in that regard. But there were, in the past couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, there was the threat that there was going to be changes. This past week, those threats weren't made by the coach, but the feeling was there that there needs to be some sort of, we've got to find guys that can execute the plan that we have in place. And now with this bye week in front of them, if they were going to do anything, if there was anything to what Dinwiddie said at post game 2 weeks ago, that he's going to find some different people to see what they can do. This week is going to give us a real good indication, David, of how serious they are, whether it is to stay pat or make changes. We're going to find out. This is an opportune moment for the Argos to make big changes. Let's find out if they do them.
Yeah, well, Ryan Dinwiddie also made it apparent there's not really much they can do if they really want to make changes too, right? So I think that's something that needs to be brought up as well.
How much do you think? And this is, they're carrying 2 high salaried quarterbacks. How much of an impact do you think that is on the makeup of this team?
Part of it, but I don't think it's the whole issue, in my opinion.
Okay. I want to talk about the games that are coming up this weekend, and the big one for me is Calgary and Saskatchewan, 2 teams in the Western Division who have proven to dominate the opposition, whether it be in the East or the West. This, to me, is going to be a highlight game.
Oh, I think so too. I think that when you got 2 top teams playing this early, it's such a good chance to see who's who, right? Saskatchewan wants to stay undefeated, and Calgary wants to show that they're for real. So I'm liking this matchup so much.
Saskatchewan in striking distance, right?
Exactly. Like that's the big one for me. Is you can you don't like Saskatchewan right now can really put some distance between them and Calgary and Winnipeg.
Well, the numbers are there.
They haven't. The last time this team started 5-0, Frank. So
they're 4-0 right now. Calgary's 3-1. If Saskatchewan wins, they're 5-0, and Calgary is 3-2.
Yeah.
So,
but the big one here, the last time Saskatchewan won 5-0 to start a year, 2013.
Well, that's when they won the Grey Cup.
Really, Frank?
That was.
Are we saying there might be a correlation with having a good start to the year?
Well, I mean, that was the second time. Oh, no, that was the third time a home team won the Grey Cup in a row. First it was BC, then Toronto, and then Saskatchewan. That was the trifecta that I don't think has ever been done.
And wouldn't it be something if Saskatchewan went into Winnipeg Stadium win a Grey Cup?
That would hurt. That would hurt. As much as Winnipeg fans were hurt by the Argo victory last year in the Grey Cup, and trust me, folks, they were hurt. They were devastated. It would be, I don't even know if their heads would stay on their shoulders if Saskatchewan raised the Grey Cup in Winnipeg Stadium. That'd just be, that would be mind-blowing stuff. That would be mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. So Calgary gets a chance to stay within striking distance. Can they do it against a team, Saskatchewan, who's playing really well? That's a good question. The next game is a highlight game for me as well, because for the same reason. Ottawa needs to establish that they are a competitor in the Eastern Division. They have their number 1 quarterback back. He should be able to play a full game. Their defense is pretty good. And now Hamilton, a very confident Hamilton team at home against Ottawa. There's going to be a little pressure on Hamilton. There's an opportunity in my mind here, David, for Ottawa to win this game simply because they stay close to Hamilton and make Hamilton, use a hockey term, squeeze the stick a little harder.
Oh, for sure. But that's something that we've come to understand with pressure in these situations where you need to be able to handle it. You need to be able to if you want to be a championship team, these are the games you need to go out and win. Right? These can't be tough games. They're going to be tough to win, but it shouldn't be tough because you're not able to handle the pressure and the magnitude of a game like it either.
And then we've got BC going to Edmonton. BC's 2-3, Edmonton's 1-3. This is a battle to control third place and a playoff spot. This game has playoff implications. At this time of year, I know, playoff implications. It's a little too early to discuss them. But the games you win now are the ones that get you in the playoffs. The games you lose now are the ones that get you out of the playoffs. And that's what this game with BC going to Edmonton's about.
Can I also add the fact that this year we have a real potential for the crossover?
Absolutely.
Like if you're BC, you can. I mean, by no accounts are you out of it in the West, but I mean, you're at 2 wins right now. Toronto and Ottawa are both stuck at 1.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's an opportunity there, right?
The only thing that fights against that, David, there's no there isn't the same level interdivision play. And in other words, that you play in your division more than anywhere else. So basically, there's a better chance that the points stay within that division because of that scheduling format that they've adopted the past couple of years, giving an opportunity for teams to play closer to home for longer. It also, I think, creates a little issue with crossover, makes it harder to cross over.
Yeah.
But having said that, I agree with you. The opportunity does exist. At the end of the day, you got to win if you don't want to be crossed over. And if you don't win, there's a chance you could be.
Exactly. But I think if you are a team right now that's aspiring to be, I mean, BC can't, they need to be in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Right. Edmonton. I mean, Edmonton is the team with the most pressure this year. Just because they haven't been in the playoffs, they're looking for something, right? Something.
They need to get as close to 50% wins as possible. It's as simple, in my opinion, David, as that, where they have to be in a hunt for a playoff spot until later in the season. They can't be out of it 4 or 5 weeks with the season left. They've got to be in the hunt. They got to be playing meaningful games in October and early November. They have to. Their fans not only deserve it, I think the organization itself, with their new GM and their new head coach and their new players that they have, I think they bought into the fact that they need to play better. And again, that adds to the pressure, which makes what you said 100% correct.
Exactly. They cannot afford really to miss out on look, if they miss the playoffs, okay, it's hard to make it to the playoffs. I get it. But if they were to be totally out of it
too early,
that's a tough pill for that market to have to swallow.
And that's what it essentially makes it so hard for Ford, because we talk, and I've talked here during this program a few times about how the starting quarterback is the biggest impact on win or lose in the Canadian Football League. So that pressure isn't lost on him. And he's a guy also who this past year, the team made the commitment to him, not just saying that he was the quarterback of the future. They're saying he's the quarterback right now by virtue of his contract and by virtue of who is in the quarterback room. He is the man as far as the team is concerned. I understand they have experience waiting in the wings, but that's all it is, experience waiting in the wings. He's got control of the ball right now. And he needs to do some stuff that makes the team think he's their guy. And he has to get on that curve of improvement, which is, I think, all the fans and the management team in Edmonton want. They want to see improvement from week to week.
Yeah.
And I think he's done that. And I think he can continue to do it.
Again, and I think it's also an understanding that he's coming into games playing against quarterbacks who've gone through the NCAA route,
right?
Which it's not easy, right?
As have most of many of the coaches. We're seeing a change now recently, but for the longest time, the NCAA quarterbacks were coached by NCAA coaches, NCAA coaches that are here in the Canadian Football League, that understand American football.
No, exactly, right? And so they need to figure. That's the part they're going to have to figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, David, thanks for doing this. Thanks for being patient, waiting till the end of the week. For those of you that stuck around to watch and will be watching, we apologize for the late standing in the week, but it all worked out fine. Thanks for doing this. For David Morisuti, and I'm Candid Frank Stanishi, and thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time. Candid Frank Stanishi, 10:30 on YouTube, if you want to follow some of the other things that we do. Thanks for watching.